May the lantern of my life move gently this night. May the lantern of my life move gently this night into all the places where light is needed, into all the places where light is needed. May the lantern of my life move gently this night. May the lantern of my life move gently this night into all the places where light is needed, into all the places where light is needed.
I kind of feel like my sermon is redundant at this point. Thank you. As far as we can tell, human beings have always had a complicated relationship with darkness. There is awe and there is resistance to darkness, to that which we cannot see, that which we cannot perceive or predict. And that response seems to be universal. It's easy enough to understand why, because if we can't see, well, danger may lurk in the shadows. Darkness is typically associated with the dangerous, with the unknown, with feelings of vulnerability and doubts about our own agency. So it's associated with fear. So when it gets dark, those who can tend to go to great lengths to avoid that darkness, to eradicate it, to quickly and fully illuminate it, to count the number of bulbs that we could put out there. There are neighborhoods that take this imperative to an extreme, this dark time of year, to the joy of children of all ages. Some folks even start climbing on their roofs before the Halloween decorations have been put away to start stringing up their lights. Such creative resistance to darkness can lead not only to extraordinarily high electric bills and have effects on our environment, our ecosystems. It can also lead to very high physical therapy bills if you're not doing it just right. And it can lead to problematic metaphors, to antisocial attitudes, and otherwise destructive behaviors. So that's what I want to focus on today, along with a framework that I'm finding helpful and hopeful as I grapple with this myself. So it goes without saying that the fears that darkness can inspire, because of its impenetrability, have long been associated with racism. Overwhelmingly negative associations with darkness are too easily projected onto those with dark skin, and this is societally and spiritually problematic. Related, to say the least, yes. Related to this is a culturally reinforced resistance to all things mysterious, to anyone or anything that we don't understand or over which we don't have complete control. So I'm talking about life's uncertainties, its complexities, its paradoxes come to mind, all those times when the path forward is not easily evident, when it's hard to figure out what the right thing is to do. As a result, in our personal or collective dark seasons, many of us end up putting a lot of preemptive energy into denying that that's where we are, in the dark, whether literal or metaphorical. Such denial causes us to miss out on what that darkness can offer us, what it can teach us about the bigger picture, about life's complexity and its potentiality, its creative power, as well as its destructive power. When we move too quickly to illuminate the darkness, we reinforce the idea that life is that binary, that simple and static, either dark or light, either good or bad, either this or that. We'd like to think that's true. Maybe we're wired to think that's true, but I'm finding it's really not. I'm drawn to this topic today because I know what it is to feel overcome by darkness. So literally, I can't get through winter without one of those seasonal affective lights, full spectrum lights, even living here in California. It's a biological imperative. We need the light. We need the sun. But I'm also keenly aware of a different kind of darkness that is growing among us, a metaphorical darkness. Aside from the personal ones that we may carry because of personal losses and fears, there is a rising despair about the environment, about crumbling social structures, the hijacking of democratic principles and processes. There is despair about the apparent appeal of fascism for so many in this world. The violence of discrimination and poverty and of war bring us to despair. Unitarian Universalism has done a lot to keep me attentive, to keep me present to these realities most of the time, to all of these and more ever-shifting, dark, painful truths. Unitarian Universalism has helped me hold fast to the idea that we can ride these dark and stormy waves, and together we can find our way to hope and to a sense of agency and ultimately to the kind of peaceful, illuminated coexistence for which our visionary forebears fought and bled. But I have to tell you, lately, the way things have been going, in this dark season, I have found my faith wanting. And I feel moved to be honest with you about that because I sense that maybe some of you can relate. So Unitarian Universalism inspires me. No doubt it inspires me to keep at it, to hang in there, to stay optimistic, to stay informed, to stay connected, to not stick my head in the sand when political storm clouds loom, and to not just sit there and wait for some supernatural force to make everything right. Unitarian Universalism encourages me to not isolate, even when all I want to do is pull the covers over my head. To work at figuring out what it's going to take to stay woke and why that's important. To try to do the right things, to educate myself, to figure out which sources to trust in the process, because these days it's really hard to know. And to write letters and to send money and to protest each day's new atrocities, each new threat to human rights, and to instill in the children hope for their future, despite my grief over what they are inheriting. So here's the thing. All of that all of those activities, all of that is good and it is necessary. And it's wearing me out. In part because it doesn't feel like enough. All of that values-driven activity, that focus on the light that we can envision and that we, as you so desperately want to bring into the world, have it be more evident in the world, that light that we feel personally responsible for, is preventing me from honoring the fact that sometimes my body, mind, and spirit need hibernation. Sometimes I just need to be present to that truth. I need to be present to what is, even if it is for just a few moments at a time. Our collective focus on activity is preventing me from acknowledging without guilt that my resources, energetic resources and other resources, as privileged as they make me, are not limitless. That I too need rest and time to dream and time to just feel held, to have respite from all that worry. Human beings evolved with a sensibility, not only for danger and for the need to act, but also for beauty and for joy and generosity. And we have tremendous imaginations, and most of us don't even allow ourselves the dark spaces needed to activate those imaginations. There is so much potential that we are not connecting with. And that potential is actually in the darkness, because when you think about it, when the lights are on, all we see is differences and boundaries. We see limitations. But when it's dark, anything is possible. I remain committed to doing my part to increase the metaphorical light in this world. I can't do anything about the sun's movement, but there are other kinds of light, and I yearn to connect with the generative power of darkness. I recognize that connecting with the generative power of darkness is part of what's going to help. The wisdom of night and of dark seasons when all sorts of seeds prepare to root. The wisdom of dark when the sufferings of the world compel us to envision symbols and systems of hope for one another, as they did for Hans Deutsch when he created the chalice during another very dark season in our history. As much as I am a moth drawn to the light, I yearn to cultivate the courage to not automatically fear the dark, to not insist always upon clearly delineated, immutable margins defining, for example, who's right and who's wrong, who's on this team and who's on that team. I want to be and remain curious about the blurred edges of our history and of the unpredictable trajectory of our thoughts and emotions. I want to be fully present to both the worst and the best of human doings, and everything in between, including the full spectrum of my own mysterious inclinations, strengths, and limitations. I want to feel less surprised at the many ways that we bump into each other in the hallways of the dark night of the soul, and how even there, while nursing our aching hearts, a kind of comfort can be found in reaching out and discovering that we're not alone. To make an enemy of life's uncertainties, its confounding mysteries, to make an enemy of my own dark thoughts and fears and doubts, I have come to recognize doesn't really help anyone, not in the long run. So I mentioned earlier that I found my way to what I consider a helpful and hopeful spiritual framework for dealing with the realities of the literal and metaphorical dark season in which we currently find ourselves. That framework is shaped in part by remaining in covenant with Unitarian Universalist optimism and activism, the benefits of which I don't believe I need to expound upon here. But it's also shaped by a variety of teachings from Jewish sources, particularly mystical sources. So I want to share a few of those. And I also want to acknowledge that we're running over in time a little bit. So I encourage you, if you can, to just relax into that, to relax into where we are right now. It's all going to work out. So first, there's the Kabbalistic tree of life, highlighting the pathways between all binaries, between this and that, the creative energies that are available to us as we seek to balance, for example, wisdom and understanding and our need to care for others with our need to care for ourselves, our warrior nature and our benevolent nature, our thought processes, and what our hearts are telling us. That framework for imagining and acknowledging what is real and what's possible within and among us has sparked my imagination and my sense of agency in some powerful ways, as has the teaching that we are here to seek that balance, not just for ourselves, for the sake of our own souls, but for all of creation. Creating balance in the world requires, among other things, that we each find and nurture balance within. And that means taking time off for a hot bath and a cup of tea, for a bit of hibernation, even as the bad news keeps coming in. That too is holy work. The description in the book of Genesis of creation begotten, of fertile darkness, of daylight beginning at night, feels true to me. It aligns with scientific understandings of the beginnings of the cosmos, but also aligns with the reality of each of us having our origins in the soft darkness of the womb. Creation begins in fertile darkness. There is a part of us that remembers this, and a part of us that yearns to be affirmed in this countercultural knowing. Fourth, it's important to affirm also that human creativity often arises in response to darkness, assuming that the darkness hasn't done us in. And that is, of course, always a danger. The origins of our creativity are mysterious. Groundbreaking ideas cannot be forced. They do not germinate under harsh scrutiny. They most often unfurl in the dark corners of our hearts and minds when least expected. We might stumble across them while in the hallways of the dark night of the soul. I know that I have on many occasions. So when we find ourselves there, when we find ourselves in the dark night of the soul, it behooves us to reach out to one another there and to share those seedlings of ideas, because we never know which might grow into something useful. And then there's this. In the book dedicated to the beginnings of creation and the beginnings of the human drama, in the book of Genesis, there's a story of Jacob traveling. So as he travels, darkness falls unexpectedly. He can't see his way forward. And so he does the only thing he can do. He lays down. He pulls a rock under his head for a pillow. And you can imagine that is not an easy resting place. But there, in that darkness, that unexpected darkness on that cold and dark stone, he has an amazing vision. He has a vision of a ladder stretching from the earth up into the heavens, and there are angels ascending and descending from that ladder. And when he wakes up from that vision, he says, Hanora hamakom hazeh, how awesome is this place? God is here in this place, and I did not know it. As we travel through life, we all invariably find ourselves overcome by metaphorical darkness, unprepared for it. We all find ourselves having to hunker down in uncomfortable, painful places. And the thing is, these places, they are special. They're not to be ignored or denied because they offer us a different perspective. They arouse deeper sensitivities, deeper attentiveness to what's going on and to what can be perceived within and beyond that darkness. Jacob perceived that it is possible. It is possible to move between what's happening here on earth and higher levels of consciousness. It's possible to move between them. There is a relationship between these realms. One interpretation of this story is that he was amazed to realize that this could happen anywhere. This kind of awareness and this flow of movement can happen absolutely anywhere, even in that dark place, even on that cold stone. He was amazed to realize that exactly where he was, as unexpected as it was, despite or even because of that darkness and the cold stone beneath his head, that place was holy ground. When I read that story, I couldn't help but think it is telling us that we living, breathing ones, we humans, are the ones who must climb that ladder. We are the ones who must move between these possibilities, these binaries, and bring to one another the best of what we find. So this week we enter the literal darkness of the year. We're heading towards the winter solstice, which signals the beginning of a return to more light, more literal light. And I wish I could say that this also signals the beginning of our sense of increased light in matters of politics and social norms, and a return to balance for everything that's out of whack in this world. That is unlikely to be the case because there is still so much work to be done. But this is where we are right now. In the calendar, this is where we are. And in our evolving history, this is where we are. It is dark and it is uncomfortable, yes. But this too is holy ground. Manora hamakom hazeh. Manora hamakom hazeh. Manora hamakom hazeh. 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 How awesome is this place? This moment in time, this being together, right here and right now.